this another episode of the Coffee at 11 show, brought to you by Wigwam and indeed supported by the Limerick Post, keeping Limerick posted, hashtag Limerick and Proud. You're very welcome. Delighted in particular to welcome our very special guest all the way from the Kingdom this morning, and it is Nicola Lawless. Nicola, please say hello and cheers us with your coffee mug.
Hi everybody. Even though both my parents came from large families and we had a large extended family, we had moved to the country, and I always kind of felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. And I know that was just incidental to the moving around, but I never really felt like I belonged anywhere, because I would start a new school every couple of years and I would have to make roots and then we might move on. And we didn't move all over the country. We stayed within sort of, the general area of Cavan and Meath, but it just left me with a sense of never really belonging, because I had very much belonged in Dublin with all my extended family around me. So I think that kind of shaped me a little bit. And I was very, very artistic. Growing up, I was nearly always seen with pen and paper and pencils and watercolours in hand. So when I left secondary school, I got a good leaving, don't know how, really don't know how. I have this I used to have this ridiculous ability to retain useless information. So I think that kind of saw me through. But when I left school, I went to art college. And I thought, yeah, this is where I should be. I'm going to move to Paris. I'm going to be an artist, just going to be, and I'm never having kids. I'm just going to be me. And I was reading all these, like all these books about the set in Paris, all these great writers, American writers, French writers, all of this. And I was like, yeah, that's a bit of me, So I think I was in college maybe 2 months, and I actually got pregnant. So I met this older Italian gentleman. Well, he wasn't a gentleman, I'll be honest. But anyway, I met him. And next thing I find myself pregnant. So there's this one who, like, I was one of those kids at school who would be wearing the long black coats and the dock boots up past the knee and stuff like that. And Garrett will actually attest to that, because he noticed me, might have say long before I noticed him. But anyway, he was, I was kind of like the cool kid, sort of, and it's slightly, not hugely, just slightly. So getting pregnant, and at that time, I felt like I had no choice but to leave college. And coming back home to Kells within 3 months was like a spectacular crash and burn. So we're back in Kells with the Italian in tow. And Ooh. It's like, it's kind of like... he came back. But then, so we settled into a nice little flat and all the rest. We're waiting for the baby to come. And then... I think I was about 7.5 or 8 months pregnant, and he said to me, "Do you know, I think I do an Italian accent, only I'd butcher it." But he said, "I think I'm going to go home for a little break before the baby comes. And sure, you can't fly now because you're past the stage where you can fly, so you can see where this is going." So anyway, off he went, and that was it. And actually, what I wanted to touch on was something that Eamon brought up in his grounding thing, because one of the things I've written down here is listening to your inner voice. And whenever I'm from the school of hard knocks, and that's through no fault of my parents, it's my own, I always do things the hard way. And the only time that things have ever gone really well for me are when I've actually listened to that inner voice and trusted my gut and listened to what it's been saying to me. And I knew he wouldn't come back, and he didn't. He didn't come back till my son was about 3 months old. But by that stage, and my dad in particular was like, maybe you could make a go of this. And again, listened to my gut and said, no, I'm not having this. And that was that. Well, I mean, obviously I didn't stay on the shelf for long, so nobody joking. Gareth came along then when my eldest was, when our eldest was about 8 months old. So things started going a bit better then. And we went on to build a life together, and we have 3 further beautiful children together. So we 4 gorgeous children.
Okay, but how did you meet?
Actually, the first time I ever met Gareth, when we were both about 12, and he was serving mass, and he was actually too cool for school, so he was laid out on the steps of the altar like this, like, and he still drives his car like that, kind of like this, you know. And so that's how we first sort of met each other. But that we met through mutual friends, essentially. And Garrett had a job just up the street from where I lived, so I would see him passing by, and he would see me passing by, and that's how we met. We kind of mooched around the peripheries of the same circles. I don't think I realised what a profound impact moving around as a child had on me until I did this, because our eldest was 12 at the time, and he was just going into first year, and he felt the impact of moving 200 miles away. So I don't think I really understood that until then. But we came to Kerry in 2008, and we made our lives here, you know. The advocacy bit comes from constantly having to fight, you know, always having to fight for services. And we came to realise fairly early on as well that if we didn't fight for things, he wouldn't be in the system. And if he wasn't in the system, he wouldn't he wouldn't be entitled to anything. So even just getting him from school into his day placement was a fight. And it was just constant fighting, you know. And I don't think I realised the toll that was taken on me, because I had quite a stressful job as well, and we'd moved and we had 4 kids and all of these things going on around us. And then in February 2016, so I don't know if anybody remembers this, but it was a bit of an epidemic at the time, not a pandemic, but swine flu, H1N1, was going around, and there was 32 of us working in the company at the time, and I think about 20 of us got it, you know. We had to actually make an emergency call to the doctor, and the doctor came out and he listened to my chest and he said, "Hospital, I'm calling an ambulance." And I said to Garrett, "Look, don't call an ambulance, we'll drive in." I didn't want to scare the kids. So in I went into the hospital in Tralee, Kerry University Hospital, and I went in there on a Sunday night, and on the Wednesday morning, they put me on a ventilator, and they called my family and said, "You've got to come down and say goodbye to her." So they called Garrett at something like 2 a.m. in the morning, and they'd moved me to ICU, and they brought Garrett in, and I couldn't talk at this stage. So I motioned for the phone, and I got the phone off him, and they said, "Look, Nicola, we're going to have to ventilate you. You won't survive otherwise." And I typed into the phone, 3 days, wake me up after 3 days, and don't leave my side, right? And he was like, yeah, okay, you know. Like, when I think about it, I just thought I was still in control, you know. That was it. I woke up 3 weeks later in CUH, but it took them nearly a full day to get me to CUH, because every time they tried to move me onto the portable machines, I'd crash. So it took them all day. Anyway, so this was obviously very stressful and very tense for my family. And eventually they managed to get me on the mobile machines that night, and they started wheeling me down the hall to bring me out, and everybody was kind of standing. I don't know, I wasn't there, but this is the story I'm told. Everyone was kind of standing to one side going, "Oh, Jesus Christ, hopefully she makes it," you know. And as they're wheeling me down the hall and everyone's hoping I don't crash, the ambulance man's phone goes off, and it plays the theme tune to The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. You know that song? Do, 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 you know? And my brother had to run out of the hall, and his wife, because they were like, "She would fucking love that." You know, like, I'm just going down the hall like in bits, you know, but like they're playing my theme song. So eventually, Mother's Day in 2016, they said, "Look, we're going to start taking her out of sedation tomorrow and see how she does," you know. And they said, "Now it's going to take a couple of days. It could even take a couple of weeks." And Dad was like, "Right, listen, forget about that. This one never even slept in the car when she was a kid, right? So you start turning down that sedation, you better be ready," right? So I remember waking up, and I had terrible ICU delirium, but I really, really knew I was in Cork. I felt like I'd run an ultra marathon, and I woke up like this. I was like this, yeah, you know, and they were all like, "Whoa, whoa." And Dad and Garrett came in, and I grabbed the two of them, and I was like, "Me boys," you know. And now it wasn't that coherent, let me tell you, you know. And all the tubes were pulled out, and the nurses were like, "Oh, come on, settle down, settle down." And I actually even punched one of the nurses. I was like, "Get away," you know. And I was like, "Come on, lads, let's go." And they gave me the phone to talk to my kids, you know. And I said to my daughter, Fia, listen, I'll be out here in a couple of days. Do you want to go and do a bit of shopping and we'll get a bit of lunch, you know? And they were all like, oh, Jesus Christ, she's off her head, you know? So we had a fun couple of days. We had a very fun couple of days. I drove the nurses nuts.
2 quick questions, if you don't mind, Nicola, please.
Yes.
First question is, Nicola Lawless, what did you find in COVID that you're not letting go? What are you taking with you from COVID?
I think that, again, going back to Eamon's opening, everything we have, we need. Everything we have, we need. I spent COVID actually downsizing because I was actually embarrassed by the abundance of things I had that I just didn't need, you know. I did not need them. Everything, it made us stop and pause, and it allowed that power to emerge and just to step into yourself and step into your power. And we don't need all those trappings. And like some of my dearest friends I've never actually met in person now, because that pause allowed me to be true to myself and be able to make those connections on a much deeper level. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I'm taking from COVID is that my hairdresser is now more important to me than some of my family. So just some of my family, but no, I'm only joking. But yeah, like just that connection is so important. And that was what that kind of life-threatening illness taught me. And I never actually felt like I belonged until that happened, because I could feel this warmth and this surge of love and positivity for me. And that's something that I spent the last 5 years trying to build on, you know. So COVID was great, because sometimes we get caught in the rat race and the hamster wheel, and it actually made me stop again. And I thought, Jesus Christ, like if you didn't listen 5 years ago, listen now, you know.
And the second question, before we go to Princess Shelley, is you meet a friend, you come across somebody older than you, and you realize by listening to them that they are in fact struggling. They're at the end of their tether in terms of everything that's gone on over the last 15, 16 months. What's your advice to them?
I don't think I would have any real advice for them, because I would feel like I wouldn't diminish their experience. I would just try to be there for them. And if there were things that I could do that they were struggling with, because we all struggle from time to time. There's small tasks that seem insurmountable to all of us. I know I get that from time to time, and being overwhelmed. So I try and help in where best I can. I'm more an action person. So I would try and help in any little way that I could. And I would listen, because at the end of the day, like I'm not getting it all right, and I'm certainly not getting it right all the time. So I would just try and be there more so than anything else, you know. I think that's really important, because I would not be where I am now without people who have been there for me.